Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Believe in Bingo podcast presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Solomon Wilcots. And today, we're joined by a very special guest to have a very serious conversation. Pro football doc and orthopedic specialist, Dr. Chao. He also is the host of Sports Injury Central podcast. Dr. Chao, thank you for joining us today. We have some very serious breaking news around the National Football League as it pertains to Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow. The news has broken that it has been confirmed that he has a grade 3 turf toe injury and is expected to have surgery. They're saying that he could be out for as many as 3 months, but possibly could come back. Help us figure out, what is a grade 3 turf toe injury? Help us out here.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, the news is confirmed. We at Sports Injury Central actually, quote, broke the news from the war room within a few minutes looking at video. Initially, I was focused on, when the defender fell on his right foot and ankle,
Yeah.
but you couldn't see. But then we got video later on that as he was escaping, and we put it on Twitter, and you can go to Pro Football Doc to see it, where it's his left foot turf toe. And we can go over what it is and what have you. But that was the first indication. Now, then we went on to say, everyone was saying, well, Cincinnati Bengals have an MRI machine in the stadium and he's going to get an MRI. Maybe he's still coming back. And that's when we said, look, Solomon, you played the game. You know how it works. People say, why don't stadiums have an MRI? Well, Cincinnati Bengals are the only stadium with a true MRI inside the stadium. The Chiefs have one across the parking lot on the stadium site. New England has one. A couple have them like that. But inside the stadium itself, that literally you can walk to or get wheeled to. So why don't more stadiums have it? Because if you're getting an MRI, you're ruled out. MRI is to see how much damage there is for how to treat it in surgery, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't tape up a turf toe or support it with a plate or something inserted into your shoe, you're done, or inject it, you're done. To get an MRI meant he was done, and that's why we were ahead of it on the curve. But we, of course, didn't know the degree for sure. I was worried it was more than mild. I was hoping for moderate, grade 2. Now with reports of grade 3, this is where the surgery comes into conversation.
When you talk about surgery, what are the damages? What needs to be repaired to get him back to full strength? Is there any way you can help illustrate that for our viewers here on Believe in Bengals podcast? A lot of Bengals fans are hanging their heads today as a result of this news, Dr. Chao.
Well, first of all, yeah, I'm actually at my home office, so I don't have the models. But Solomon, this is way better than the last time I spoke to you about Joe Burrow's wrist ligament, scaphoidal ligament tear. I remember exactly where I was. I was on the balcony of the Cosmo in Las Vegas, there with my wife for the first F1 race. I literally, and I was like, oh, I got to find a quiet place and whatever. And literally, that's where I was. So this is better than that. But in any case, no models, but a turf toe essentially, and this is overly simplistic, but essentially is this.
Okay.
You can see that.
Yeah, we can see that there. There's
So,
slight glare. But yeah.
as you, a little bit of glare, maybe closer,
That's
less glare.
right where that's good, right there. Hold it there. See, that's right where the big toe sort of connects to the foot in that joint. Am I correct?
Yes, it's what you would call the bunion joint.
That's right. We all know what a
Okay.
bunion is, right?
But it's the bottom of the bunion joint. And essentially what it does is it hyperdorsiflexes. And if you go to the video that we made from the war room, it's all over on X. It's got almost 1 million views now. You'll see the moment that it happens. So if this is my hand, obviously, but if the thumb here is the toe and it goes down, but it goes up, when it goes up too high, it tears what we call the plantar plate and the ligaments on the bottom. You can see on the video that Joe Burrow's toe bends up, for lack of a better word. We call it dorsiflexion, higher than it's supposed to go. And so what it does is then it tears the ligaments and structures on the bottom of the foot. Now, turf toe is a tear of the ligament, but
That's right.
we as orthopedists are relatively simple: mild, moderate, severe.
Severe.
So
Yeah.
grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. They're all tears to the ligament.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when I saw the report of turf toe and tear to the ligament, I was like, dog bites man. I mean, it's like, okay, that's what it is. But the report of a grade 3 makes it surgical. And that's the bad news surgery for Joe Burrow. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Solomon. I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
Yeah.
It is very optimistic to say 3 months and good to go for Joe Burrow. So the reporters are accurate, the national reporters, in saying at least 3 months. That is accurate. The emphasis on
So
at
three
least.
3 months, at least 3 months, he'll be out.
And I don't like delivering bad news like that. But when Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles tendon week 1 2 seasons ago, I was on Pat McAfee saying it's not impossible that he could return the same season. I wasn't saying middle of December like Aaron Rodgers ended up saying, but I was saying end of season and maybe playoffs. And but of course, if Zach Wilson for the Jets gets you there, do you really replace him with Aaron Rodgers? Same thing here. I'm actually more optimistic that Aaron Rodgers could play at the end of the season than perhaps Joe Burrow. The only optimism for Burrow is it's his left foot. It's not
Yeah.
the push-off foot. So that's, I want to always give those sliver of hope and optimism for Bengals fans. This is a big deal. This is essentially season. The hope for him to return is going to be that it's his left front foot. Because if it's your back foot and you can't plant, you can't drive into it. Actually, I had a text conversation with Phillip Rivers last night. He texted me a bunch saying, I had that in 2020 and da 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 da. And it was so painful, but he didn't need surgery, but it was very painful. And he had it on his right foot. He played through it. It affected him all season, but at least he didn't need surgery. So Joe Burrow's better that it's left foot, but it seems to be a worse injury in terms of grade 3. And he's getting a consultation now from, reported by Schefter, Robert Anderson. And we had Dr. Anderson on the Sports Injury Central Believe podcast this summer.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about he's actually not doing surgeries anymore. So he will not do Joe Burrow surgery, but is still consulting. And let me tell you, Dr. Anderson is not going to need to see Joe Burrow in person. He's out of North Carolina. I was one of the first doctors in the league to use him for consultations for foot and ankle specialty. He can look at the MRI. He probably can look at the x-rays and see what we call retracted sesamoids. He can do a video consult, but it's all about the plantar plate. If it's torn, then surgery's on the way. And grade 3, torn and retracted. And grade 3 implies torn and retracted.
Retracted means you have to pull it back to its place.
Correct.
And then
retracted means it's out of place.
It's out of place, absolutely. So talk to us, help us to understand what is going to be required in the surgery if there is a retraction. What is the process of being able to pin it down, have it reattach? What's the process for healing here? And I know you've already given some timetables, but help us to really dial in on that.
Okay. Well, I always try and speak in simple terms rather than in medical terms because nobody wants a Latin message and whatever.
Right.
Okay. So we've already talked about that this is the bunion joint. Okay. Mm-hmm. The bunion is the bump on the inside of the foot, right?
That's right.
This is surgery to the bottom of the foot. Okay. First of all, everyone knows someone who had bunion surgery. Okay.
That's right.
Were they ready to play football in 3 months?
Wasn't even ready to walk, most people, right?
No, it's not an exact comparison.
That's
okay.
Right. That's right.
But here's the big deal. It's the bottom of the foot. And the big toe is responsible for more than half the push off strength. And you need your motion back to be able to run and jump and move around. Now, we've already said it's a little better because it's his front foot than his back foot. But still, he's got to, be mobile, even if not run, at least be mobile in the pocket and drop back. You need both feet to drop back and dorsiflexion. So if you have a thought about what surgery to the inside of the toe, the medial side of the toe, the bunion joint surgery is, you can have an idea what the bottom is. The only main difference is bunion surgery usually involves bone, and this does not involve bone. So this is the difference. But it is repairing the plantar plate or the tissue or the ligaments back to where it belongs and sewing it with anchors or sutures to bone. And then you have to allow minimum 6 weeks of healing time where you don't touch the toe, let it heal, and then minimum 6 weeks of rehab to get, imagine any joint that you have surgery on and then you don't move it for 6, 8 weeks. You gotta take a lot of time to get it moving again. And also there's the pain issue besides stiffness. Look, the only good news is, and let's hang your hat on good news, quarterback, left foot, front foot. If this were Jamar Chase, season period, end of discussion, not happening.
There you
and I'm
go.
not trying to jinx Jamar Chase, okay? But they do different things. A lot of other players, but because of quarterback. And that's why I was saying Aaron Rodgers might have had a chance late season if they were still in it, because he plays quarterback. There, if it were Garrett Wilson, I would have said, done, not a chance, right?
Yeah.
Different needs and uses.
So basically, when this surgery is completed, there will need to be ample time to recover. However, you don't see this as being a complicated procedure. Yes, it is a weight bearing joint, but in terms of the percentage for a successful recovery, you would put at what, Dr. Chow?
I love chatting with you, Solomon, and you bring out the best in me. And to me, the best in me is rays of sunshine, hope, and optimism.
There you
Just
go.
like we discussed, even though Joe Burrow had an unusual scapholunate wrist injury, essentially a mini
Yeah,
dislocation of the wrist, I said, no worries for next season. Now,
there you go.
Joe Burrow has said the next season there was some stiffness. He still works it out. But performance wise, there was no worries
Don't
for
get
the
back.
next season.
That's right.
I can confidently say the same thing. No worries for next season for Joe Burrow,
Yeah.
and no worries for his career. Does that mean his toe, if you examined it, is 100% new normal? No, he may lose a little bit of motion. It's like a car that's been in a car accident. You can fix it. You can tell it was in a car accident, but as long as it runs well and gets you to work at home and what you want to do, you
Right.
don't care. That's going to be Joe Burrow's toe. Is it 100% brand new? No, but 100% functional where you won't notice it through his career. Yes, I'm very confident of that, especially given the position he plays. But another note on timing, there was a lot of talk around the league about how Malik Neighbors' toe was, and that was a turf toe injury, or Will Johnson in Arizona, right? And that was from the previous football season to the next. Now they play different positions. And this is why I'm saying this 3-month timeline is short. If anyone can do it, it's Joe Burrow because it's the front foot. But the biology is the biology.
As you well know, people tend to want to talk and make these comparisons. It's one of the great defensive linebackers that we ever saw, Hall of Famer Jack Lambert. It's already been reported. A turf toe is what ended his career. But that was roughly what 30, 40 years ago. Modern medical technology has really progressed a long way. So if someone's out there saying, hey, this could, it ended Jack Lambert's career, it could end Joe Burrow's career too, you would say what, Dr. Chow?
Well, anything's possible, right? But it is nowhere near the expectation that this will end Joe Burrow's career. Nowhere near it. Okay. Not only because, okay, could a turf toe end a quarterback's career? And I won't mention any names. It could if it's his back foot or if it was a quarterback that made his living a little bit or a lot of it on his running ability
Runner.
and
Yeah.
mobility, it
Mhm.
would slow it down. Could a turf toe end a wide receiver's career? Yes, could. Not should or would, but could.
Could. Mhm.
Yes. Not likely, but for a wide receiver or a running back or a DB, but it could. Okay.
Yeah.
For a quarterback, I don't see it, especially a quarterback like Joe Burrow
He's a
and
pocket
Joe
passer.
Burrow's caliber. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, um, the uh, the I'll give you an example. I'm Jason Pierre-Paul, different deal. He
Yeah.
blew off his thumb and a good part of his hand, right?
That's
And
right.
that same July 4th, there was, I believe, a DB in Tampa that had a fireworks injury to his hand. And what I said is because I said that Tampa kid, unfortunately, will be done and out of the league. JPP has a good chance to return because of certain things, but also because he's JPP. Now, when
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
returns, he might be JPP this, okay?
Yes.
Or let's look at Nick Chubb, okay? Nick Chubb, horrible injury, right? And it's
Yeah.
he's now playing in Houston and doing okay, but that's not Nick Chubb we knew. It's Nick Chubb here, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Which look, so Joe Burrow's career is not going to end because Joe Burrow's here, and even if we got Joe Burrow here or here, which I'm not expecting, his career is not done. I
Still
expect him
pretty
to be
good.
Joe Burrow. That's probably the biggest news that I would have. But Bengals fans, I'm sure, are just besides themselves. And I know that injury prone word is going to be floated around, which I hate.
Yeah, look, for first of all, people should understand that if you play football in the National Football League, it's not about if you get hurt. It's a matter of when you get hurt. This is a 100% injury business. If you play long enough, it's going to happen.
And my
We
guy Philip Rivers, who was texting me a bunch, he's so funny. He texts me about his high school athletes all the time. He loves it and love texting with him. But anyways, he has this huge, longest quarterback consecutive start streak, whatever. And we just talked about playing through a turf toe, maybe not as bad as Joe Burrow's. We talked about recently with Matthew Stafford, Philip Rivers had epidurals. Okay. Philip Rivers had a ton of rib blocks. We talked about all the injections he had. This is all public information. He got injured. He just was able to play through based on the injury and what
That's
we
right.
could try and do.
That's right.
Joe Burrow, unfortunately, has not been able to play through. And this is not a blame or saying that Joe Burrow is soft
No,
at
the
all.
injuries were just more severe
It's different. And if
and
you
more
remember the
pertinent to what
preseason,
you do as a quarterback.
yes. Look, I look at it this way. If you take enough ski runs, you're gonna get injured.
You're
If you
going
take
down.
enough ski runs and they're more double black diamonds,
Yeah.
you're gonna get injured. If you take double black diamonds aggressively, you're gonna get injured, right? And it's about injury exposure. And I said on the Believe podcast earlier this summer, and it wasn't criticism, and I'm sure you'll remember this, Solomon. But I was like, it's great to see Joe Burrow playing because normally he doesn't play in the preseason or
Yeah.
hasn't traditionally.
Hmm.
But I was like, Joe, what are you doing? He extended plays like crazy
Yeah.
in the preseason and he didn't get hurt. But I was like, you can't do that in the
That
NFL
exposure. Yeah, it's called
and expect to
exposure.
not get hurt. Now, you want your quarterback to extend plays when it's games on the line, third down,
Mhm.
fourth down, etc. But boy, not good. I mean, it leads to more exposure. And that's not a criticism of Joe Burrow. He's trying to do what he can to have his team win, but it does add to injury risk, which is why every coach says, get down, right? Don't take the risk. Well, when you're running around in the backfield trying to escape and run for your life and extend plays, you put yourself at more risk. And if you look back at Joe's career, most of the injuries have been that extending plays.
Dr. Chao, one last question before we let you go. A lot of Cincinnati Bengals fans are going to hang their hopes on the news that potentially there's a sliver, a window where he could potentially come back by the end of December, at the end of the regular season. To that, you would say what?
Uh, Hope springs eternal. Let's keep hope alive. I would say that Jake Browning won you a game in the second half. I would say that at least your backup has playing time and playing time in the system. And, you got to stay alive for that. And here's maybe another ray of hope. Would you rather be 2-0 with Jake Browning and a sliver of hope for Joe Burrow coming back, or 0-3 or 0-4 with Joe Burrow trying to come back? At least you got a good start to the season. And if you can, stay above water and stay in it, maybe there's still a chance. The good news is when he does come back, I think he's going to be fine. And once again, remember, left front foot makes a difference. And maybe when he comes back, there's a way for Zach Taylor and company to modify the offense a little bit. He does more shotgun, so there's less drops, and more just getting the ball out kind of thing. I mean, you got all the targets and receivers and offensive weapons. But so there's a sliver of hope, and let's keep hope alive and go from there.
He is the Pro Football Doc. You can find him on X using the handle at Pro Football Doc, orthopedic surgeon Dr. Chao. Of course, he's also the host of the Sports Injury Central podcast. We want to thank you for taking the time to join us right here on Believe in Bengals, presented by FanDuel. Great information. Hope does spring eternal. The Cincinnati Bengals are 2-0 for the first time since 2018. Dr. Chao, thank you for joining us. We want you to join us again next time, everyone. Goodbye.